Port Charles woke up Thursday morning with a strange feeling in the air, the kind that comes just before everything changes. By nightfall, nothing would be the same. At General Hospital, the halls were unusually quiet. Nurses whispered. Doctors exchanged looks that said more than words ever could. Somewhere between routine checkups and emergency pages, a truth long buried was beginning to surface. Most people believed the danger had already passed, the investigation was over, the threat had been handled. But one person knew better: Diane. She stood alone in her office, reviewing a thin file that refused to make sense. Timelines overlapped where they shouldn't. Statements contradicted each other just enough to raise suspicion. Someone had been careful, too careful. That usually meant one thing: a mask. Elsewhere, at a quiet cafe near the hospital, a familiar face played the role everyone expected: helpful, concerned, harmless. This person had comforted victims, offered guidance, and always seemed to arrive at exactly the right moment. Too right. During a casual conversation, a single detail slipped out: a time, a location, something that had never been made public. The person across the table froze, because only one kind of person could know that detail: someone who was there. By afternoon, Diane wasn't alone anymore. Curtis joined her, then another ally, then another. No accusations yet, just questions, simple ones, innocent ones. Each answer revealed a little more. What became clear was chilling. The person everyone trusted had quietly shaped the entire narrative, redirecting suspicion, calming doubts, making sure no one ever looked too closely in the right direction. Not through force, through influence. For the first time in a long while, the criminal felt cornered. They had always believed themselves untouchable, protected by reputation, relationships, and the belief that people like them couldn't possibly be capable of such manipulation. But Thursday was different. People stopped confiding. Conversations ended abruptly when they entered rooms. A familiar smile no longer earned trust, it earned silence. The mask was slipping. It didn't happen in a courtroom. It didn't happen at the police station. It happened at the hospital, right there in the open. Diane spoke calmly, never raising her voice. She didn't accuse. She presented facts, dates, statements, contradictions, each one delivered with surgical precision. Others joined in, filling gaps, connecting dots. The mask bearer tried to laugh it off, tried to redirect, tried to claim misunderstandings, but then came the moment that changed everything. Someone stepped forward who had been silent for months. "I trusted you," they said, "and you used that." The room went still. There was no dramatic confession, just realization. The truth was now unavoidable. The carefully crafted image, the protector, the advisor, the calm presence, collapsed under the weight of exposure. People didn't shout, they stepped back, and that distance said everything. By the end of the day, the criminal stood alone, stripped not by force, but by truth. Their greatest weapon, trust, was gone. News spread fast. People re-examined past decisions. Conversations replayed in their minds with new meaning. Favors once seen as kindness now looked calculated. And the most painful realization: this person hadn't acted out of desperation. They had acted because they believed no one would ever question them. Diane didn't celebrate. She closed the file, knowing justice in Port Charles was rarely neat. The truth had come out, but consequences were still forming. Some wounds would take time to heal. Some relationships would never recover. But one thing was certain: the mask was gone, and everyone could finally see who had been standing among them all along. As night fell, a message arrived, anonymous, brief, unsettling. "You exposed the wrong one first." which meant only one thing. The criminal had been unmasked, but the story
The
was
message
far
lingered
from
in
over.
Diane's mind long after the hospital lights dimmed. You exposed the wrong one first. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. By Friday morning, Port Charles believed the crisis was over. Headlines talked about justice. Conversations centered on relief. People told themselves the danger had passed now that the mask had been removed. Diane knew better. Criminals who rely on influence rarely act alone. She reopened the file and noticed something she'd missed before, not a contradiction, but a pattern. Every major decision, every misdirection traced back to moments when someone else had quietly stepped in to help. Always helpful, always calm, always untouchable. While everyone focused on the exposed figure, another person moved freely through Port Charles, untouched by suspicion. They attended meetings, offered sympathy, and subtly guided reactions. They didn't panic, because they had planned for this. This person had designed the fall guy carefully, someone believable, someone flawed, someone whose exposure would satisfy the town's need for answers. And it worked. Until now. At General Hospital, a patient regained consciousness after weeks of silence. The doctors called it a miracle. Diane called it timing. The patient remembered a voice, soft, reassuring, familiar, giving instructions during a moment that was never supposed to be witnessed. Not the voice of the exposed criminal, someone else. When Diane asked for a description, the answer made her blood run cold, because it matched the one person no one had questioned. Curtis began digging quietly. No warrants, no accusations, just observation. And what he found was disturbing. Financial records that didn't add up, messages routed through intermediaries, decisions influenced without direct involvement. The mastermind had never ordered anything outright. They had suggested, letting others believe every move was their own idea. The perfect crime wasn't committing the act, it was convincing someone else to take the blame. Diane chose her moment carefully, a hospital fundraiser, public, crowded, safe. She approached the mastermind with a smile and a casual comment, one that referenced a detail only someone deeply involved would recognize. The smile across from her faltered, just slightly. Enough. "You're very good at staying clean," Diane said quietly, "but even clean hands leave shadows." The mastermind laughed it off, for now, but fear had entered the equation. That night, someone attempted to shift the narrative again. A rumor spread, a story leaked. Diane's credibility came under subtle attack, not loud enough to be obvious, just enough to plant doubt. It was a mistake, because now Diane knew exactly where to look. The mastermind made one fatal error. They underestimated someone they thought was irrelevant. A nurse, a witness, a voice that had been ignored. That voice came forward, and with it, proof. Not a confession, evidence. By the time dawn broke over Port Charles, the real criminal knew the game was over. But they weren't finished yet. As police prepared their next move, an emergency alert rang through General Hospital. A locked room, a missing file, and a note left behind. If the truth comes out, so does everything else. The clock was ticking, and this time lives, not reputations, were at stake.